Okay, that's the live is starting there. Let me go back to here. Just want to see. Okay, so, all right. Okay, we're live. Let's get the recording to the cloud here. All right, everyone. My mom's going to be doing the next portion here for us. Ezekiel 38 to 39. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay. The word of Yahuwah came to me. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Yahuwah says. I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with your whole army, your horses, your horsemen, fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. Persia, Cush, and will put them with them, all with shields and helmets. Also Gomer with all its troops, and Beth Togarmah from the far north with all its troops, the many nations with you. Get ready, be prepared, you and all the hordes gathered about you, and take command of them. After many days, you will be called to arms. In future years, you will invade a land that has recovered from war, whose people were gathered from many nations to the mountains of Gaushrael, which had long been desolate. They had been brought out from the nations, and now all of them live in safety. You and all your troops and the many nations with you will go up, advancing like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land. This is what the sovereign Yahuwah says. On that day, thoughts will come into your mind, and you will devise an evil scheme. You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and bars. I will plunder and loot and turn my hand against the resettled ruins and the people gathered from the nations, rich in livestock and goods, living at the center of the land. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish and all her villages will say to you, have you come to plunder? Have you gathered your hoards to loot, to carry off silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, and to seize much plunder? Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say to Gog, this is what the sovereign Yahuwah says. In that day, when my people Gaushrael are living in safety, will you not take notice of it? Will you come from your place in the far north, you and many nations with you, all of them riding on horses, a great horde, a mighty army? You will advance against my people, Gaushrael, like a cloud that covers the land. In days to come, O Gog, I will bring you against my land so that the nations may know me, when I show myself set apart through you before their eyes. This is what the sovereign Yahuwah says. Are you not the one I spoke of in former days, when my servants, the prophets of Gaushrael, at that time they prophesied for years that I would bring you against them? This is what will happen in that day. When Gog attacks the land of Gaushrael, my hot anger will be aroused, declares sovereign Yahuwah. In my zeal and fiery wrath, I declare that at that time there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Gaushrael. The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned. The cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Yahuwah. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will execute judgment upon him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones and burning sulfur on him and on his troops, and on the many nations with him. And so I will show my greatness and my set apartness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am Yahuwah. Chapter 39. Son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, this is what the sovereign Yahuwah says. I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around and drag you along. I will bring you from the far north and send you against the mountains of Gaushrael. Then I will strike your bow from your left hand and make your arrows drop from your right hand. On the mountains of Gaushrael you will fall, you and all your troops and the nations with you. I will give you as food to all kinds of carrion birds and to the wild animals. You will fall in the open field, for I have spoken, declares Yahuwah Elohim. I will send fire on Magog and on those who live in safety in the coastlands, and they will know that I am Yahuwah. I will make known my set-apart name among my people Yashrael. I will no longer let my set-apart name be profaned, and the nations will know that I, Yahuwah, am the set-apart one is in Yashrael. It is coming. It will surely take place, declares sovereign Yahuwah. This is the day I have spoken of. Then those who live in the towns of Gaushrael will go out and use the weapons for fuel and burn them up, the small and large shields, the bows and arrows, the war clubs and spears. For 7 years they will use them for fuel. They will not need to gather wood from the fields or cut it from the forests, because they will use the weapons for fuel, and they will plunder those who plundered them, and loot those who looted them, declares the sovereign Yahuwah. On that day, I will give Gog a burial place in Yashrael, in the valley of those who travel east toward the sea, meaning the Dead Sea. It will block the way of travelers, because Gog and all his hordes will be buried there. So it will be called the Valley of Hamon-Gog. For 7 months, the house of Yashrael will be burying them in order to cleanse the land. All the people of the land will bury them, and the day I am splendored will be a memorable day for them, declares the sovereign Yahuwah. Men will be regularly employed to cleanse the land. Some will go throughout the land, and in addition to them, others will bury those that remain on the ground. At the end of the 7 months, they will begin their search. As they go through the land, and one of them sees a human bone, he will set up a marker beside it until the grave diggers have buried it in the valley of Hamon-Gog. Also, a town called Hamanah will be there. Hamanah means horde. Just see. And so they will cleanse the land. Son of man, this is what the sovereign Yahuwah says. Call out to every kind of bird and all the wild animals, assemble and come together from all around. Excuse me. Assemble and come together from all around to the sacrifice I am preparing for you, the great sacrifice on the mountains of Gaushrael. There you will eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of mighty men and drink the blood of the princes of the earth, as if they were rams and lambs, goats and bulls, all of them fattened animals from Bashan. At the sacrifice I am preparing for you, you will eat fat till you are polluted and drink blood till you are drunk. At my table you will eat your fill of horses and riders, mighty men and soldiers of every kind, declares Yahuwah, the sovereign Yahuwah. I will display my splendor among the nations, and all the nations will see the punishment I inflict and the hand I lay upon them. From that day forward, the house of Yashrael will know that I am Yahuwah, their Elohim, and the nations will know that the people of Yashrael went into exile for their sin, because they were unfaithful to me. So I hid my face from them and handed them over to their enemies, and they all fell by the sword. I dealt with them according to their uncleanness and their offenses, and I hid my face from them. Therefore, this is what sovereign Yahuwah says. I will now bring Yaakov back from captivity and will have compassion on all the people of Yashrael, and I will be zealous for my set apart name. They will forget their shame and all the unfaithfulness they showed toward me when they lived in safety in their land with no one to make them afraid. When I have brought them back from the nations and have gathered them from the countries of their enemies, I will show myself set apart through them in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am Yahuwah, their Elohim. For though I sent them into exile among the nations, I will gather them to their own land, not leaving any behind. I will no longer hide my face from them, for I will pour out my spirit on the house of Yashrael, declares sovereign Yahuwah.
Okay. So the only thing I had to add was I think there's a parallel account of this prophecy, in my opinion, from Zechariah 14 about Ezekiel 38. I think I just want to read it real quick. I'm reading this from my Bible Discovery app here. I'll use the LXX 2012 here. So go to Zechariah 14. I think I'm going to focus on the early part of the chapter here that talks about all the Gentiles he sends against Jerusalem, for all the nations that fought against Jerusalem. And it says, behold, the days of Yahuwah come, and your spoils shall be divided in you. And this is why I believe Zechariah 14 is referring to Ezekiel 38. And I will gather all the Gentiles to Jerusalem to war. What my mom just read in Ezekiel 38 completely matches this. And the city shall be taken, the houses plundered, the women ravished, half of the city shall go forth into captivity. So this has to be prior to Yahushua's return here. Okay. But the rest of my people shall not be utterly cut off from the city. So all that happens before the return here. This is, verse 3 tells us that Yahuwah is coming after that all this happened, after all these Gentiles that Yahuwah brought against Jerusalem, fights against Jerusalem. It says, and Yahuwah shall go forth and fight with those Gentiles as when he fought in the day of war. And his feet shall stand in that day on the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave as under. So this is why, in my opinion, I know a lot of people think the Ezekiel 38 war is supposed to happen in Armageddon. To me, it's very clear. If you read Zechariah 14, 1-3, and match that with Ezekiel 38, he's telling us that war is actually precedes his second coming. It actually, the reason he's coming is to defend his people, who he brought these Gentiles against. So he brings the Gentiles against them as a judgment against his own people, but then in his second coming, almost immediately after the war happens, he returns. So I don't know if that makes any more sense of the timing of that. To me, it makes perfect sense of the timing of the Ezekiel war, rather than the traditional view is that Ezekiel 38 matches Revelations 20, a lot of people claim, which I respectively disagree. I think that's a completely different war, not in the same time period. It just happens to have the phrase, four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog. So they take that one little phrase and assume that the Ezekiel 38 war is the same war. So anyway, I know his brother Joshua had his hand up. Go ahead, brother Joshua.
No, you pretty much answered it. I was asking if Ezekiel 39, if that was referring to the Gog and Magog reference in Revelations after the millennial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the best way I can explain that to people, is that through our, you could say, I guess, assumptions we have had in the past, we assumed that Revelations 20 was pointing to that war, but Revelations 20 itself is even after the millennium and is way after what Ezekiel 38 is talking about and what Zechariah 14 is talking about time-wise. Chronologically, it's way two different time periods. Yahuwah is actually coming to defend his people from that Ezekiel 38 war, it seems what it's saying in Zechariah 14. So that's just an understanding I came to in the past couple of years, because I used to think that too. Oh, the Ezekiel war is supposed to happen in way end time, but it seems like this war happens right before his second coming. So this war actually, you could say, is the precursor to the day of Yahuwah. And so when Zechariah 14:3, it says, in that day, or not verse 4, but I think it says, verse 4, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives in that day. So that day is the day he takes vengeance on his people against these Gentiles, the Ethiopians, Gog, Magog, all these nations he originally sent against his people in that war. And so I'm actually surprised most translators, they don't put footnotes next to like Zechariah 14. I don't think any module on the My Sword even does it for the Ezekiel 38 and 39. They really should, because that gives like the context. Zechariah 14 gives you the context of when it's happening. But anyway, I digress. So that I cross-referenced Ezekiel 38 with Zechariah 14, 1-4. So for anyone that was wondering. All right, so I think we're going to do a whole new recording here, because we're about to get into a lot more books in this prophets portion. And we're going to need a whole probably 40 minutes to an hour for the next couple of portions we got here. So let me just do a new recording. Most likely too, I might have to switch devices. So please stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. For our part 2 in the prophets portion, Brother Joshua will be doing Obadiah and Jonah. So please stay tuned for the Obadiah and Jonah portion. Shalom.